Guys, Stealth here. Quick video today, as the game just didn't last that long, but it was still good to show you, because it's a pretty textbook example of how you can be pushing into this Bravo sector, which is going to be my hunting grounds today. Now, it's one of the newer maps, although, let's face it, it's not really a new map, is it? I mean, if you spin it around like this, you're suddenly looking at Plungin Valley, where normally blue force starts here, red force starts there. And this town in the middle is usually pretty heavily red for. This time around though, we're starting from the sides. I got Hotel with Blue 4 and Alpha is being controlled by Red 4. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Bravo is slightly in the advantage of Red 4, because the routes are shorter. You can fly over there with a helicopter faster than I can get there. So, in all intents and purposes, this should be a position that Red 4 can capture pretty quickly. That's why I'm using my Blue 4 UK deck, which has SAS, and the SAS are very capable of capturing a position quickly, so that the rest of the force is going to have at least some breathing room in order to get there. The rest of my forces is consisting of FV Warrior 90s, FV 432s with Javelin Infantry, 2 Recon SBS and 1 Centurion Avery. Now I have put down another Centurion, but I decided to cut that one out in exchange for a Chieftain Mark 11, and this one is there not so much to deal with tanks but mostly to kill vehicles, whereas the Avery is to deal with the aftermath of the vehicles. Once the infantry has disembarked, the Avery can really easily wipe out any infantry group on the battlefield, and that's exactly what you're going to see it do, and not only against vehicles, or not only against infantry. My allies over here are Thrace, TW, and Tech 1. Tech 1 is going to set up a large position in Echo, but somehow he just doesn't seem to do a whole lot the whole game. Over on the left, Thrace is going to take most of the points in order to defend this position. Now, a bit weird here. I have put down an A marker, Stealth CV, my command position here. And what Tech 1 did is invest heavily in a Leopard 2 command tank. It just sat there the entire game, so not really sure why you'd want to have a command tank like that. So that's why I put down a command marker or an attack marker with 2 question marks, like, what the hell are you doing? Yak 38 comes in and apparently drops a couple of bombs on this road, which is a road that I had no interest in. Now I see the Mi-24V come in, so I'm instantly dropping off my infantry, but this helicopter is descending a bit faster than I had initially expected. SAS is offloaded, immediately suffers from the explosion of the helicopter, and the Mi-24V manages to take it out. Saxons are a bit more survivable, so I rush those into the town, get the SBS offloaded, and at least give these guys a bit of cover, so that the rest of my forces can catch up. Now I don't mind if they destroy a Saxon, because a Saxon is just a 10-point transport, which I really have no further use for. Javelins are offloaded. Mi-24V has taken its first hit and it's stunned. This is going to make it a lot less effective. And you can see that right now I have managed to make it into this position before Red 4 did, which I find rather surprising. Because the road from Red 4, if you just take the, let's say the highway here, the main road, instead of this dirt road, just take the highway, you start there, you rush down and you're there. For me, I feel that the distance was a bit longer because I had to take, let's say a sort of route around. But I still managed to make my position here a lot sooner than they did. And now I have SBS, which aren't great against vehicles, but at least they're going to be a force that's going to be stopping them. Because they won't know exactly what they're dealing with. There goes the Mi-24V, last shot fired by the Javelin. I'm removing my Centurion, relocating it towards this position where it can fire along the road and take down any infantry that it can find. In the meanwhile, my Chieftain is firing right between the buildings and trying to do damage to the Motostrelkis. It's not easy getting a shot with this vehicle, and I really should have moved it, but I did manage to get a first 35 pointer there. Fusiliers are now offloaded. I managed to join the fight, and you can see that those massive impacts, that's the Centurion Avery at work. This position is a pretty dominating position, because with this I can easily wipe out groups, especially if they're in the open, like that. So this huge crater was created by the Avery as it destroyed the infantry. A lot of forces pushing in from all sides. The BRDM-3 got way too aggressive and got wiped out pretty fast. Fusiliers apparently have taken down a lot of vehicles as they fired 9 of their anti-tank rounds. And what I have left now is just a bunch of Motostrelki, which are getting really quickly dispatched by the Avery. This is why I want to have a unit like this in my attack move. They're only 40 points, but they've already scored way more than 40 points and have assisted quite a large offensive on my end. Now, the advantage of rushing in with SBS is also that you get a good sight of what is coming at you. I can see that there's a Tor just sitting there, an 80-point AA unit. I can see 3 groups of Motostrelki backed up by BMP-3s, as well as some BTRs over on the left with VDVs. So I'm pushing forward my Chieftain Mark 11, because if I can nuke that AA position, I'm perfectly happy. And of course that's when the BMDs, or the BMPs, start to return fire and my tank goes down. But already this tank got me more points than it cost me, because not only was it able to destroy one high-priced AA unit, it also managed to defend against the oncoming rush, so that I now have control of this position. And granted, it's not a very strong position currently, because I only have a few Fusiliers, a little bit of SBS and 1 AA unit. And if I'm facing a helicopter rush, they can easily wipe out this position. The Avery is firing all the way from over here to all the way out there to Motostrelki. But this is when it starts to take fire from the BMPs. They're firing with their Arcan long-range ATGMs. Don't underestimate these things, because they have 2800 meter range. I'm trying to make this gap as large as possible, and I'm also hoping that the buildings are going to provide some cover. One missile, though, finds its way through, and there goes my Avery. Still, I have control of the position, and I'm not trying to rush my warriors back into the cover of the buildings, because I'm again being sniped by BMP-3s here. Those Arcans not only have a long range, but they also fly very fast. And this is quite the dangerous missile for me. Offloaded my Javelins just in time, because again, ATGMs kept coming in from these guys. I'm going to blow up the vehicles here. Another 432 destroyed, but again, very cheap transport, I don't mind. What I did mind was that my HGM vehicle was also going to get hit. This is the next vehicle to take a missile. And that missile did so much damage that it not only killed the vehicle, but also the HGM infantry inside. And I was trying to get an HGM infantry unit in here. It can overlook the entire field from there, and I was hoping that from that position I could take care of the BMPs as they were supporting this position. Very few Fusiliers are left now. A few SBS, and the other SBS got nuked. I'm not really sure what killed them, but I believe they died somewhere back there. So now I have 9 units of infantry, 2 Javelins, or at least one group of Javelin with 2 guys, 1 warrior and a bunch of transports. That's all. I also brought in Lynx TOW 2. These things were quite the lifesaver, because what they were allowing me to do was snipe the BMPs as I got them spotted. And the SBS is still there to do the spotting job. So I'm slightly moving my TOW 2 up, especially consider I had already taken care of the AA. I wasn't expecting any new AA positions. But what I can find is the BMPs. And there they are. Missile going in, BMP, easy target. Unfortunately it missed though. And this is when Thrace started to send in aircraft to help me out there. So, 2 of those BMPs down, netting me 35 points per vehicle. And especially the points at this stage weren't too interesting to me. I just wanted them dead, because they kept neutralizing my supply routes, even though they were behind the buildings. Points at this stage were a bit low, so I didn't have that much to go with. So what I'm bringing in now is a Saxon, which carries a group of Gurkhas. It's a 15-man squad instead of a 10-man squad. And I'm bringing in Gurkhas at this stage because I have at least a few Fusiliers. I don't really need a Warrior 90. What I do need is more infantry. As well as infantry that has very good anti-tank capability, because my Fusiliers are almost out of ammo. And my SBS only carry the M72 Law, which only has 13 armor penetration with terrible accuracy. And I'm kind of worried about my TOW 2 here, so I'm slightly pulling that back. Just waiting for the Gurkhas to arrive, and I'm bringing in another AH-7 with some more SAS aboard. The SAS are here to do a multi-role task, which is exactly what they're suited for. They're here to provide AA support over on the right flank, where I don't have an AA unit yet, and to help out with their AT-4 anti-tank weapon. Now my Gurkhas have arrived, immediately getting the Saxon out of there. I don't want to feed them any more points, even if they are only 10 points. Gurkhas are in position, 12 Law 80 anti-tank weapons ready. So with this I should have plenty of firepower to deal with any incoming vehicle that gets too close to my town. Bringing in a stalwart here. If you have a position like this, I considered sending in Chinook. The Chinook though is airborne, and those BMPs, I don't believe they have anti-air capability on their autocannons, or at least not long range, but I don't know what other AA units near. So I'm sending in a ground-based resupply in order to make sure that the thing has a pretty decent chance of surviving or arriving in one piece. As with the Buratino strikes, just as I'm slightly reinforcing this position. My Fusiliers are trying to make it out. I believe they're going to get hit straight on. There you go, 2 missiles landing right next to them. Fusiliers 90 are now dead. My SBS managed to hop out with the last survivor. So at least I have one SBS that I can reinforce, and of course my stalwart that's coming in is going to be perfectly suited for that job. Just to resupply these guys and keep this recon active as best I can. Bringing in another Centurion over here, because from here I can overlook again the majority of the field, shoot down any of the incoming transports that might be threatening this position, because what I was really expecting was a push this way. I thought that, okay, if you fire a Buratino, what's likely to happen next is a rush with vehicles. So, I'm trying to get my warrior to get some distance, pulling the FV-432 away and trying to reinforce this position. The AH-7 I'm keeping close. It has 38 rockets in rocket pods. And this thing is also quite capable of getting ready to shoot down enemy transports as they're coming in. A sniper run here by Thrace, who tried to bomb or destroy some of the infantry in the buildings, but there was nothing there. At least you're going to see an attack marker pop up soon, no kills. Which is a really good way to communicate, because it means that I now know that there is nothing in here. So this, for me, could be useful information if I want to push in here. I can still see some vehicles coming in, so my SBS is still doing the job very well. Second stalwart has arrived to reinforce the SBS. The javelins haven't fired a single shot yet, same for the Gurkhas. Once the SBS is completely filled up, I can reinforce their position and move up to a position that's a bit farther away. In the meanwhile, my AH-7 got a bit aggressive, and this was completely by design, because I wanted to try what their response would be. It was just a Scrajat. I wasn't sure what it was, so I pulled my helo back. Then I realized it's a Scrajat, and I can easily kill that, because my rocket pods are going to do stun damage. Firing off the last of the rockets, and there's a 15-point Scrajat kill. Now my helo's empty, time to send this thing back to the base, as my warrior is going to get sniped by another ATGM. Let's see, it's another vehicle coming in. And at this stage my Centurion Avery has also reached the front line. Instead of putting it here, I decided to put it here for now. Where, if I wanted to, I could shoot at these buildings, so that the next move would be to push in there. And I'm bringing in another group of Gurkhas just to reinforce this position. The problem is I cannot really safely move in too far without risking another HGM coming at me. And I'm not too sure I can get behind the building before the HGM hits. But for some reason the HGM just didn't fire. So my Saxon is safely in position here. My stalwarts could have easily been killed off, but they weren't for some reason. Gurkhas offloaded, and pushing the Gurkhas into the buildings here. Again, I don't have any long-range anti-tank capability, short of my TOW-2. And I realized my TOW-2 had been sitting still for way too long, so I started moving it away from the last known position. Not sure if they could see it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. HGM came in, very narrowly missed my either stalwart or Saxon. I'm not sure what it was going for. But I think the missile just got out of range, or it lost recon. At this point I was asking people if they had long-range artillery, because there was an Mi-24K just hovering here casually. That's a 110-point recon helo, and I would have loved to snipe that. Unfortunately, I didn't have any reconnaissance, or sorry, any long-range artillery. I was bringing in some short-range artillery, or saving up for it. So long-range artillery, not really. And no one else replied, so this Mi-24K just kept hovering there, and there's not a lot I could do about it. Because pushing out with my javelin infantry, it would never have gotten close enough without taking fire from anything that's hiding in this tree line. In the meanwhile, I'm also bringing in a fox just to do some additional spotting. Moving the fox over to the left where we are pretty blind. The enemy could have rushed this position pretty easily, especially with helicopters. They could have just flown right in, so we had a massive gap in our lines here. Which I was well aware of, but I just didn't want to invest too many points in that. What I did want to invest points in was another HGM unit, as well as some mortars. Getting ready to shoot some more infantry units as there were vehicles as they popped up. Of course, we're getting shot again by the Buratino. So the Gurkhas are going to have to relocate. Same for the SBS, although the SBS don't seem to be in a position where they're actually on fire, considering they've taken up position in this wreckage here. So I can actually keep those guys in there, and the Gurkhas, for now, are just going to have to fend for themselves. My stalwart already made the return trip to the FOB, which was very cleverly put here by Thrace, very far forward. Initially I thought that this was a bad position, because it's easy to detect and easy to shoot at. But it made it very easy for me to reinforce my guys here, by just constantly sending stalwarts back and forth, instead of having to go with Chinooks. More reinforcements coming in, a Saxon with some more Gurkhas in there. And I'm also putting another Saxon down here, because I want to close this gap. I'm not sure how many forces they are going to try and pour through, and I'm not eager to try and find out, so I'm going to close this gap off. In the meanwhile, this stalwart is pretty much waiting for these guys to calm down, so it can start reinforcing them. And I believe the Fox might be, or the, no, sorry, it's the SBS that's spotting these guys over here, the MTLBVs. 432 moving into position. I'm not going to make the same mistake of rushing in here. I'm risking ATGM, so I'm going to pull it off the road and offload it here, where the infantry is going to have to carry their ATGMs to a position that's more beneficial to them. Somewhere like up there, or frontal anyway. This, by the way, is the SAS unit that I had deployed. The SAS is here for multiple reasons. Air detection, or anti-air units over, let's say, this perimeter. As well as if there is a vehicle rush coming down this road, they can at least stop it for a little while as I reposition my Gurkhas. Because the AT-4, it's not a great weapon, but it does the job. And they do carry only 6 rounds, so I need to get in there quickly and help them out. 432 dropped off the Milan 2s. Milan 2s are safely in the building, and I'm going to start relocating those soon. So I'm constantly checking, do I have enough of everything? Do I have enough AA? Well, not really. I only got my javelins on my SAS. Do I have enough recon? Again, not really. Only 1 SBS. As far as infantry goes, 2 groups of Gurkhas, and that's it. In the meanwhile, my other units have arrived, let's say, to the west of my position. This Saxon took a bit of fire from, I think, an MTLBV. So my Gurkhas have neutralized that pretty quickly. That was this group that fired off 1 rocket and the target died. Bringing up a Saxon here with a reconnaissance unit, SBS moving into position. And with these, I want to try and push through this forest into these buildings. Try and capture this position. And that's why I also prepared my mortars, which are parked over here. With this position, I can cover a large amount of the map. And this is going to allow me to put up smoke or suppression fire with the mortars. And again, I'm bringing SBS to make sure that I know exactly what I'm dealing with. As well as that these guys have quite some potent anti-infantry weaponry. The Bren L4, the L34A1 submachine gun. And these guys are pretty good at dealing with enemy infantry, which is exactly what I'm expecting in there. Another unit coming up, a Warrior 90 with some more Fusiliers, and another Saxon with more Gurkhas. Make sure you have overwhelming numbers. Now this is something that I was rather unhappy with. An Afghansky came in. These things are very, very lethal to enemy infantry. Quad barrel, pretty much an AA gun, although I believe that the Russians found out in Afghanistan that they were also quite effective at dealing with enemy infantry. If this position is actually covered by an Afghansky, it's going to be more difficult for me. So, putting up smoke screens, again, firing all the mortars. And with this smoke screen I can a lot more safely move my Gurkhas forward without risking instant fire from the Afghanskys. Another Saxon moving up, but it won't really be there in time. You can see I'm pushing with 30 Gurkhas and 10 SBS. I'm pretty much trying to spot whatever's in here. I'm trying to neutralize the vehicles as a priority target. The infantry groups I'm not that worried about, but the vehicles are the problem here. They have HE damage, and they can damage me quite quickly, really. So those have absolute priority. You can see that the Gurkhas got pinned down here a little bit. They tried to fire at the BMP-3, missed their first round. I'm not pushing them forward because through the smoke they lost sight. As when the Afghansky opens up, you can see my Gurkhas are just going down very, very quickly. The second group of Gurkhas managed to nail the Afghansky, pushing up, trying to get the BMP next. As over here, the SBS managed to capture this position. And again, Thrace is coming in with air support, which is perfect timing, because now this infantry group is shaken, and that means they're going to be less effective against my Gurkhas. Lost one group of Gurkhas here. The other group is still surviving and still trying to push away from this position because I don't want to engage here yet. As my mortars are providing fire support, and they're firing at the Motostrelki in this forest to either panic them or just to kill them off altogether. There you go. Centurion Avery moving up, that's the one that I had parked back there, as well as the Warrior to drop off the Fusiliers and to work with me with the Rarden autocannon. I'm also bringing in a heavy tank, because I'm expecting a vehicle response here, and I want to be ready for that. What I would do, if I was Red 4, if I saw a push like this come in, this is Artie. This is what you're seeing from his perspective. I'm thinking, okay, I got vehicles coming in, I got infantry coming in, or actually he cannot see my vehicles, I got infantry coming in. I either need to reinforce his position with infantry, or get some vehicles in there, which might be able to help me out. So what I would do here is bring in something like a BTR 90 or Spetsnaz, something to deal with this infantry. That's what I'm trying to get ready for by bringing in a Challenger 2. And yes, it could have been a different vehicle, but I had the points for the Challenger 2, and it's a really, really good vehicle. So that's why I brought the Challenger 2 in, and it's going to take a while before it gets there. Unfortunately, HGMs took care of my Warrior, so I'm immediately pulling the Centurion off the road, and I believe getting my mortars ready to fire again, although this time they were firing, they fired one round at the BMP, and that's when I realized that my fire should continue to go here. I also put up a marker down, Artie please, to let them know that I could use some more artillery fire. Again, putting up a smoke screen to make sure my Gurkhas for now are going to be safe. Fusiliers pushing up, and the Avery is still holding here because the AGGM threat is still very real, and I don't want to get shot by the AGGM. Especially at this shorter range, the Avery does not have the right time to respond. Now, by all that artillery fire, the infantry that was in this building was forced to move, and you can see the Conquerors are now pushing out. They're trying to get a decent, let's say, safer position. At which stage they run right into my Gurkhas. Once this HGM is down, which is right about now, I can now help out with my Avery and whatever other vehicle I choose to bring in. Gurkhas are pushing into position. Getting ready. Make sure that if you move your infantry like this, don't put them on attack move because they're just going to stand there. Make sure you right click on the building. That way they're going to move towards the building and fire along the way. If you put them on attack move, they're just going to camp out here where they're a very easy target. In here, they're much more difficult to hit. Fusiliers pushing in, also trying to help out this position. And there's the response that I was worried about. BTR 90. Grenade launcher and an autocannon. Not a good deal for my Gurkhas. So the Centurion Avery is trying to pretty much drive through the flames here in order to help out their buddies up at the front line. Avery trying to get a good shot in. Not a really good spot yet. And I really should have moved my SBS forward a lot sooner, because my Avery just did not have a lot of recon. You can see that they slightly had a view of the Avery as an HGM flew in. HGM immediately veered off course, still lost sight. And again, the response that I was expecting is exactly what happened. If you have a position where infantry is pushing in, the red for response is always going to be Spetsnaz. My response to that was already premeditated, and look at this. Goodbye Spetsnaz. That's what you can do with the Avery. Just have it there as a support unit. Don't put it on the front line. This is a sort of secondary line for me. This is my front line. This is the first position that's going to take fire. Centurion Avery pushing up farther, trying to get shots at whatever else he could find. I was considering going for the BTR 90 here, because this was a pretty big threat. But I also noticed that the Motostrelki 90, if they manage to make it to this building, they're going to be harder to kill. So, stopping the Avery, getting it ready to fire at the Motostrelki. One blast, no more Motostrelki. That's what these things do. That's what they're very good at doing. Challenger 2 pushing in, but I believe that at this point the match, yeah, it's almost over. You can see Rafterman surrenders. Challenger 2 trying to move forward to get a shot, and I believe the last round that he's going to fire is the BTR 90. One round, BTR 90 dead. I have the position, I have most of my forces, and this is what I considered a pretty textbook push into this position. So, hope that was useful to you. Make sure you use smoke, make sure you use mortars, make sure you use a different combination, and you expect what the enemy's response is going to be, and that you have a response ready for that as well. Now my victory ratio wasn't that good, 805 versus 485, so almost a 2 times markup, but I really wanted to do better there. My losses were mostly due to the BMPs. The BMPs and the Mi-24Vs. Those, and especially that one Mi-24V, killed off quite a lot of points. The AH-7s combined with the SCS are pretty expensive. And the BMPs 3s managed to kill off the Chieftain, the Centurion, the Warrior here. They killed the SBS. What I should have done is gotten ready for a BMP-3 response. So next time I might send an attack helicopter with my attack group in order to deal with BMPs or other vehicles. It doesn't really have to be a Lynx TOW 2, it can just be a Lynx TOW 1, because those missiles are perfectly enough. Aside from that, Buratino, I really couldn't do too much about that, except pull my infantry back a little sooner. Concours, I should not have kept my warriors in the open, and the Gurkhas 90, while they died bravely fighting off the Motostrelki. Anyway, use this, apply this, and make sure that you improve upon this strategy, because it's not perfect. As you can see, I lost quite a few forces. But I still managed to get the position, I still managed to make it quite an effective push, and I very well anticipated what their response would be, and made sure that I was ready for that. So, if you find it useful, please hit like. If you have a question about this strategy, let me know. And if you want to use the deck code's in the description down below. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.